Hey guys, you're listening to the Chasing Tone podcast. I, of course, am Brian Wampler. Today, we're talking again with Blake Weiland, and we talk about, he goes to band practice. He takes a totally different board than what he normally does. He takes a little mini board versus his gigantic, monstrous board with every pedal known to man that's on it. What that looked like, how that affected his practice. We didn't talk about band practice versus independently practicing and how those two can work together and sometimes work like not well together. And then we talk about boss pedals, how they used to be looked at in the eyes of people and how that's changing. And then we get into something to wrap it up that's quite interesting. It's this long story that we're going to do in an upcoming. We're going to detail in upcoming episodes. But we talk about this story that kind of made boutique pedals. I guess you could say that story that happened is what made boutique pedals boutique. So I know that sounds a little odd to really listen to. I mean, it doesn't really explain that much, right? So we're going to talk about it more at the end of this episode, and then we're going to do a few episodes that really detail this entire story. It's a fascinating story. So let's jump right into the podcast with Blake right now.
Brian, what's going on today? What's going on in Wampler Land?
Well, today is the Fall Foliage Parade in Martinsville, Indiana. So what that means is that here in about an hour, the 13,000 people of this town will pretty much ignore it, but maybe 3,000 or 4,000 of them may go down to the little square, and there'll be, I don't know, hundreds of people that are in this line for the parade, and so they're driving cars, and you got your tractors, people with mowers and go-karts. And basically, if you just want to be in the parade, you just go to the high school and get in line, okay? That's kind of how that works. So there's not much to do in Martinsville, Indiana, especially on a Sunday afternoon. And so apparently they do this every year. Now, don't get me wrong, like back in 1950s, 1960s, maybe even the 70s, this was a big deal. Like the
this
whole
was cool.
Yeah. Now it's just kind of like, oh man, I can't freaking get to Walmart because there's stupid parades in town.
That's actually kind of funny because I don't know. We haven't recorded since then. So as we talked about, I just got back from New York City last week for a little trip / guitar event.
Which was the Fear the Riff thing, which I saw you ate some amazing looking pizza.
I didn't eat it there, but I did eat it all over. I ate so much pizza all over that city. It was fantastic.
I was looking at your Faceagram, and it was, it looked like you ate some seriously good pizza.
I did. I also had one of the best burgers I've ever consumed in my entire life. It was amazing. It was like brisket and all this stuff mixed together and bacon jam and man.
That's one thing I love about New York is like there's just such great food there. Oh my gosh.
Oh, if we hadn't been walking like 12 miles a day, I would have gotten so fat. Like we were just consuming so many calories, but we were always on the move, and we were walking a lot. But anyway, point being is you were talking about parades. So it's a busy place. You don't really go there for a relaxing trip. But at one point, my wife was like, I'm really tired. I'm going to take a nap. I didn't sleep very good last night. And I was like, well, I slept pretty darn good. So I am going to go to guitar stores while you take a nap. And,
yes. That's always a great trade-off. Yep.
Yes. And she's like, okay. Well, unbeknownst to us, there was a massive parade going, literally just started as I walked out the door. And like, it was like 2 blocks away from where we were staying, so she wasn't sleeping because there was horns going off and all kinds of stuff going on, and it blocked me from going to my main subway entrance. And I was like, and I had to go like way around. It took way longer. Anyway,
Right.
parades have ruined both of our days here.
It was a 3-hour trip to go to the store across the street, right?
Essentially, I mean, like, basically all I had to do was walk 2 blocks, hop on the train, and then walk another 2 blocks, and then I was at the store I was trying to go to.
Right.
And yeah, that didn't happen. I ended up having to go way around. But hey.
Yeah, so we did that. Hey, I went to the Garth Brooks concert last week. That was cool.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, this was a good show. Now, my wife's more of a fan of Garth Brooks than I. I mean, I do. I was a big Garth Brooks fan, I guess, in the '90s or whatever.
Oh yeah, me
but
too.
I've since moved on with my musical tastes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more into like the Justin Bieber type stuff these days. Maybe a little Katy Perry thrown in with the little Kesha.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Who?
Yeah.
Who are those people?
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I'm like really into that's my gig.
I know. I can tell.
It's my jam, and love that stuff. So,
course.
but anyway, so we're at this Garth Brooks concert, and met Johnny Garcia, who's Garth's guitar player. He's using 3 of our pedals, which is cool.
That's got to be a heck of a gig.
Oh yeah, just an awesome gig.
Man.
Yeah, very cool.
I like Garth Brooks. I'm not gonna lie. I might catch some hate for that.
Well,
but
he's got friends in low places, so
fun fact. I sang that, or I had auditioned to sing that song. This is hilarious in retrospect. So when I was in elementary school, we had a talent show. And I was like, Mom, I want to sing a song at the talent show. She was like, well, what's your favorite song? I was like, I really like Friends in Low Places. And I tried to sing that at the audition, and the lady like doing the audition was like, I don't think that a third grader should be singing about whiskey. And I was like, and Mom was like, you know what? That's a good point. I never really thought about that. Maybe we won't do that song.
I have my own Friends in Low Places story as well.
Hit me.
I was. I'm gonna guess I was probably 18, maybe. No, how old would I have been? I was probably 18 or 19. Okay, and there's this place in Bloomington, Indiana. I forget what the venue's called. It's not there anymore. But basically, it was what you call a line dancing establishment.
Yeah.
Okay? Now,
yeah.
for those who don't know what line dancing is, if you're in your 40s like me, that's what you did whenever you were like 18 to 22, 25 or whatever. Like, there was basically bars and clubs where they would play country and western music. And, I mean, like, actually,
it was
some
a big
cool
deal
stuff. So,
back then.
yeah, like it was a big deal. It's like people just all dance in the same way, very cultish, almost like a cult. They all dance in the same way and listen to country music while doing so. But I mean, there's bands that played, right? So I was auditioning to be in my first country band at the time, and it was a train wreck. So first of all, I wasn't familiar with the country guitar style at this time.
You were a metalhead, right?
I was more of a metalhead, so I was more of like Skid Row. Huge fan of like first, second album Skid Row stuff, right?
Of course.
So if you can think of like like Youth Gone Wild, you know what I mean? If you think of that type of song, that's the type of riffs I was trying to play to Garth Brooks' Friends in Low Places, right?
I could get down on that though. I'm with you. I could listen to that.
It doesn't fit, right? And nothing against that. Like Chris Lusinger, who actually played the stuff on the Garth album, is a good friend of mine. So, like, nothing against that. It's its own style. It's cool. I was just too dumb to understand it was a different style and that I needed to play it a different way, right? So here I am, and it's not going over so well with those in cowboy hats and boots. And as a final measure, like, this guy's like, well, why don't you, let's see if you can sing something. And I'm like, okay. I learned, that was a hard lesson for me to learn, but I learned that everybody has things they're good at. I suck at singing pretty much in general, but specifically Garth Brooks songs. Like, if you ever want to clear a dance floor, all you have to do is invite me up on stage to sing a song. Yep.
You know, some people got it and some people don't. It just is what it is.
It is. It is. And you know, secretly, I've always admired those who can like just sing really good.
Totally.
You know, I always wish that I had that talent. But I can't.
I'd love to be a vocalist. I do sing with my band, but I'm not a singer. I'm not a good singer. It's just barely passable, basically. Right. Yeah. Anyway, we could go down. I got lots of Garth Brooks memories now that you bring it up, but we should probably talk about gear. Next time I'll talk to you about the high school talent show where we played a punk rock rendition of a Garth Brooks song. We'll talk about that next time.
That sounds fantastic. Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of bands, you were talking about something you learned last night. I noticed looking at your Faceagram that you took like 3 pedals to a band practice.
Well, I think I talked about it a few episodes ago where I was trying to fit as many pedals as I could on like a itty-bitty tiny board. I should measure it. I don't know how big it is, but it's like slightly bigger than a piece of paper, like an 8.5 by 11. It's pretty tiny. And I brought that board to... now, I should say, I was pretty successful. I fit like 7 pedals on it. Yeah, so I rarely play with less than like 10, including like the tuner and stuff.
Right.
And so it was kind of weird to go to band practice with the mini board, but I will say, saved me a ton of time in setup and teardown, because it's just like, usually I told you I would just bring a box of garbage and throw it on the floor.
Right.
Like it's like, I forgot why boards are so awesome. You just plug it in and you're ready to go. Which hadn't experienced in quite a while due to my indecisiveness with trying to put together a board.
Right.
But so that was good, but everyone's like, yeah, idiot. Of course, everyone knows that. That's why everyone uses pedal boards.
Or Boss ME50s. I don't know if you're familiar with that. You know, it's like I always thought that'd be a very handy thing to do. Like if you just want to like go practice real quick, just throw one of those in your bag and be done with it for, you know, the next 30 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyways, I digress. Go ahead.
Anyway, it was kind of nice having only the small array of effects. I purposely picked like designs that were either like top mounted or mini pedals, or you know, maybe some of them were single pedals, but they had like my reverb had like it was a Dr. Scientist reverberator, and it's got like 8 different modes of reverb. So like really versatile units, and it turned out it worked really well, but I was missing some of my gnarlier fuzz tones that I normally would have. So that's probably not really due to anything other than pedal selection. But all in all, it did do what everyone says it does, which is makes you focus less on your effects and more on just rocking out.
And what made you decide to try this again? Like what were you thinking when you're like, what I need to do is take a small board? Like what was there a specific reason?
There's a couple reasons. One is I first of all, I had that mini board laying around just with nothing on it. And I was like, I should put stuff on this, because I was going to use it for something else originally when I got it, and ended up never using it for that purpose. And so I was like, well, it's just sitting around taking up space. I should put some pedals on it, you know, so that it actually is useful. And so I did that day, more as a challenge than anything. Like, just see how many pedals I can fit on this tiny thing. The reason I took it yesterday was actually a time thing. I was out helping my dad with stuff all day, and I knew I wasn't going to have time, you know, the 30 minutes plus that it would normally take me to sit there and look at, you know, what do I want to bring tonight? And throw it all in a box and bring it. Like, It was like, I got to just grab this thing and go, because I'm already running late. So it was a little bit of a time crunch thing. It was nice knowing that it was there and ready to go. Like in my head, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to take off a little bit early so I can spend 20, 30 minutes picking out my effects for tonight.
Right. So it wasn't that you said, I generally use too much, I'm going to downsize to force myself to practice differently or something like that then?
No, it was more of a time crunch thing than anything. If I would have had a big board set up, I probably would have took that instead. But that said, now that I've taken the mini board, it did do just that. Like, okay, here's your sound. This is what you get. Now just play.
Right.
Which is kind of a nice change. Although I kind of know what sounds I'm going to use on which songs and bring pedals for that. So I don't spend as much time tweaking as actually during practice or during a set as like maybe your average super nerd would, because I already kind of know where it needs to go and I just put it there.
Right.
But that's because I spend almost every night playing with the different effects. So it's accumulation of time to be able to just throw things in and know where it needs to go.
Well, it sounds like you need to acquire basically a dedicated pedal board that is just always set up. You know,
I have one. I have one looking at me right now that I need to just take the time to do it.
Right. So you're playing with this band, your band, obviously. Mm-hmm. You have a completely different setup. It's been a while since you guys had played together, if I understand correctly. Is that right?
Yeah, it'd probably been a month and a half.
So what did you find out once you got there, once you're all set up? You're playing the songs you're normally used to playing with, like, gigantic board. You got, your little Hasbro board put together.
Right.
What did you feel? Like what did it feel like coming from that?
So it was a lot different experience than I'm used to in a couple ways. The small board changed a lot. Which I already talked about. But then the other thing is I feel like I am all of us in the band are probably a little more technically proficient than we were, say, 2 years ago when we recorded our album. We're all probably just a little bit better players, and we all have a little bit better gear, and so you would think that we should all, as a unit, sound a little bit better. When you don't play together often, like we were back then, we were trying to play, at least a couple times a month. You find that you're not that good together, even if you're all a little bit better players. I know I'm not a great player, but I'm a little bit better than I was when we recorded the album, and we were just not tight. There's a completely different thing between practicing your licks and practicing your stuff at home versus playing with all of your band as a unit.
Right.
It's a completely different experience, which on the surface of it I should know. But it never really clicked in my brain until last night when I was like, nah, we aren't locking in like we should be, type of thing.
Right.
It wasn't a bad practice. We still had a great time and had fun.
Right.
But it was we all came and like, yeah, we need to practice more often. Like.
Well, it sounds
really
like you guys have all grown, like as players. You've all grown. You've just grown differently, almost like a marriage. So. I'm sure you're looking at each other going, it's not you, it's me, but I mean, at the end of the day, I can understand it because it's easy to like learn stuff better, whether it's learn how to pick cleaner, learn how to play different types of stuff, learn how to play different songs or whatever. But it's different than learning how to gel or fit in or lock in with the drummer, for one example. Mm-hmm. It's different than learning how to read people's bodies and their eyes and stuff and know where to go and what to do in a band situation. So that's a whole different type of learning.
It is. It's way different, and I could definitely tell like we weren't as locked in together as we were in the past. Right. There used to be like cues you would pick up on, and it's like, whoa, that's what you were gonna do. I missed that. Whereas, like, of course, that's what he's gonna do. That's what he always does, or
right.
Whatever.
Yeah, you guys are growing up so quick,
No, it really is just. I mean, I think we all still play more or less the same style as we always have, as individual players.
Right.
but it's just the frequency of getting together that needs to step up if we're gonna expect to be where we want to be, I guess.
No, I totally get it. So at this point, have you guys? You are going to practice more, I'm assuming, right?
That's the plan.
Okay. Are you taking the mini board, or are you taking a larger board from here on out? I think that's the problem here. I think the problem is the effects screwed you up, and you lost it. You weren't able to do what you normally do because you were unhappy with the lack of effects.
No, not really.
No, that's true. You need more pedals. Yeah.
Well, I mean, no, you're right. I do need more pedals. I'm not gonna argue with that point. Of course, I need more pedals. But yeah, no, it'll probably kind of come down to if I have time to get a bigger board set up the way I would like to set it up. Originally, I was thinking about going the ES8 route and having this complex MIDI rig. Mm-hmm. And then Leon built a board based around that. And I played with it a little bit, and I was like, ooh, you know what? This is really, really cool, but I think this is more complexity than I want. I think I can get away with something a little more. I say stripped down. There will still be a ton of effects, but a little less complicated in the switching aspect. Right. So it'll be a little more standardized that way. But point being is, I think I have a plan of what I'm going to do, and it should get really interesting.
Right.
So.
But did you have any Boss pedals on that particular pedal board?
On the mini board?
Yeah.
I did not have any Boss pedals on the mini board. There will probably be a couple on the big board.
Have you noticed? You ever wonder why Boss gets so much hate?
So I guess it depends on what group you're in or what kind of gear circles you run in. I think they used to, especially on like TGP and some other places. But I think the attitude across the board is that people are starting to figure out like, hey guys, a lot of the effects we love originally came from Boss. They invented it. So like they're a pretty impressive company, and the boxes and designs and stuff, I've come to like really enjoy Boss pedals over the last like 2 years. Where I was kind of like, I don't want any Boss, early on. It was like, well, that's dumb. They have some really great effects. And I think the attitude in the gear culture, for the most part, is starting to change back to, wait a second, these are actually pretty cool.
Well, I think you're seeing it more in the groups you're in versus a lot of the groups that I'm looking at, because like you're kind of part of an early, what some people would call like an early adopter, which is like you're kind of there at the forefront when trends start happening. Mm-hmm. And not like you personally necessarily, but like some of the groups you're in are kind of more like early adopters, where like some of the groups that are, maybe gigantic, but not really what you may be into. Mm-hmm. Like the gear page, for example,
right.
Would be more of, like once the early adopters like something, then those guys kind of latch on to it and like, oh, this is becoming cool. I should start to check this out now, Mm-hmm. So in other words, some of the groups you're looking at makes things cool. Some of the groups I'm looking at sees what's becoming cool, and then now we look at it.
Right. That could be.
There's a term for that. I forget what that's called. But so anyways, like I'm seeing it start, like people are starting to contemplate that it there might be some cool gems there. But it's a weird thing. I mean, like you could go anywhere and find a Boss pedal. You've always been able to go to basically every store that carries guitar gear, and there's some Boss stuff there, right?
Mm-hmm. Of course. They sold like some ridiculous number of OD1s, and I can't even remember what it is. Something insane. Right.
And, I mean, guitar players as a whole, not all of them are as obsessive as like you and I are, or like what those who are into quote unquote boutique or high end. Most guitar players aren't that obsessive. Most of them will go to the guitar store and, first of all, most of them probably aren't listening to a podcast about guitar gear. Second
probably
of all, most of them just going to a guitar store and thinking, I need a delay. What's the cheapest one you got?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, all right, here's my little, Danelectro or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
And then they take that to band practice and they kick it on and they don't even think whether it's true bypass or whether, oh man, my signal's degraded, like that's just not.
This thing degraded my signal.
Right. So it's not like, oh, I need a better power supply. I can totally hear how this power supply is supplying enough milliamps, man.
We are definitely the outliers, and probably most of the guys who listen to this show would fall into that category too.
Yeah. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably not one of those guys.
Most likely not. You're probably pretty nerdy like you and I.
Right. Right.
So kind of to bring it back around, you might be right. Like I have a very clear memory of I was feeling rather fancy way back in the day, and I went to Pro Guitar Shop back when they had a brick and mortar, and I was like, man, I haven't bought any pedals in ages, and that was true at the time. I hadn't bought anything in a really long time, and I was like, I'm gonna get me some pedals today, and I went in there and bought like three pedals. I can't remember what they all were. I think I got I know I got a Digitech Whammy. I got a Mad Professor Sweet Honey Overdrive, which is still one of my favorite overdrives.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember what the last one was. Oh, it might have been the Maleko Chaos, which was their crazy like synthy fuzz thing.
Right.
But I walked up to the counter. I was like, yeah, I want these, and was laying it down. And the guy behind me was like, hey, man, that's some sweet stuff you're getting. Good thing you didn't buy any of that Boss crap.
You are in Portland, though. That's you guys are a little more trendy than a lot of places.
He said that to me though, and I thought even at the time I wasn't as knowledgeable about things as I was, but I'm like, I don't think there's anything wrong with Boss pedals. Like I thought that in my head.
This is a stranger, right?
This is a complete stranger. I have no idea who this guy was, but he said that. He's like, man, those are some nice pedals. Good thing you didn't buy any of that Boss crap. And I was like, I walked out of there going like, you're kind of a. Like, I don't want to be around that person. Like, who would be that judgy? That's so weird.
Was he wearing a Gear Paid shirt?
I don't even remember. But I'm
because that was the typical. This is probably several years back, right? So,
mm-hmm.
I mean, there was more of like that sort of elitist type of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Like 2005, 2008, somewhere near that. I think, anyways, more than now, where it's becoming more acceptable. Like you said, there was a time where it was terrible. Like if you were using a Boss anything, you were a complete idiot. You know,
and like other than a tuner, maybe.
Right, and so they're like, I forget the pedal. There was a Bob Burt pedal, and then it was made by another company that was like all swirly paint. What was the name of that pedal? Oh my gosh! But basically, it was just a like straight up tube screamer, right?
I think I know. The swirly paint thing. Oh, that's. I know what you're talking about.
I can't remember the name of it.
What it's called.
But it was huge on the gear page.
Is that the one that was referred to in that one Free Stomp Boxes article?
Yes.
Or post?
Yes.
What was that post titled? The Goose,
the Goose. Hang on, I'll tell you. The Goose, the Middleman, the Idolmaker, and the Gomer Pyle.
That is such a good post. It's so good.
Yes, it is a very good post.
I didn't see it till you shared it here recently. I had never seen that before, and I was like, "This is amazing." And I knew what pedal he was talking about the whole time, and it was like cringeworthy.
Well, but it's entirely the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, completely the truth. I mean. I got to be really careful here. I've talked to both of these people in different capacities.
Oh, really?
I mean, sadly, one of them involved has passed away now.
Oh,
but yeah, there's a lot of truth. So what you have is basically people who are looking at.
Can we break this down for a little bit for people who don't know what we're talking about?
Yeah,
briefly.
I'm trying. I'm kind of in the middle of it, and I know you got a time crunch here. So, So what you have is the guy that knows about electronics. He knows how it works. There's no magical, mystical thing to him. Like, he's not looking to source capacitors that, were made in 1982 in a small batch or anything like that. Like, he understands how electrons flow. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And he understands that it's math. At the end of the day, it's math. And then you have the guy that is wanting to make a bunch of money somehow. And you have the guy that is wanting to.
He's like the guy he's like the hype man.
Right. He's the hype man. He's wanting to capitalize it. So you have a guy who builds this product for the retailer. And the retailer's like, no, I don't like it. It's ugly. It's in a nasty box. You have the guy. So he's like, all right. So he literally takes the same circuit, puts it in a prettier box. And now the retailer's like, that's freaking fantastic. It's awesome.
It sounds so good.
Yeah. And the reason why he's wanting to do that is because someone else had built this thing for him and had hyped up this tube screamer circuit so much that now this guy is now he's drinking the Kool-Aid. He's like, no. It's you. This is a mystery. This is electronics is like magic. It's not. It's like not math.
He has the golden touch. You guys just wouldn't understand.
Right. Right. I mean, and you know what? This whole thing may be probably a podcast in itself.
Yeah, we should revisit this later. We could probably revisit this entire article.
We probably need to redo this, not redo this, but revisit this in the next episode because it's such a fantastic story.
It is, and it's really in depth. Right. We shouldn't have brought it up
at 28 minutes. Right?
Yeah, this is my bad.
Right. I'm trying to take a 12. So I have it in a PDF. It's 12 pages long. Okay, so I'm trying to condense 12 pages down in 30 seconds, and I'm having a hard time doing it.
It's not really working. The point is, let me see if I can sum it up. Basically, there was some people involved. One guy was making tube screamers. One guy knew he was making tube screamers, and one guy was selling his tube screamers and claiming they were something special.
Yes, for like $500.
Yeah, for really a lot of money. And they were selling like hotcakes because they were overhyped.
Yes.
And the one guy who knew what was going on the whole time was basically rolling his eyes.
Yes. He was on the forum at the time going, guys, it's a freaking tube screamer. It's nothing magical. And they're like, no, this one is different than mine. It's totally radically different. Mm-hmm. And so and that's something I have a problem with. I have no problem with telling people, hey, here's our, whatever pedal that's based off of this type of circuit. Mm-hmm. I do have a problem when people try to take a circuit and claim it's magic in some sort of way, So there you go. That's my thoughts.
We went way out of bounds on that one, but that's cool. I mean, we should kind of like maybe before we do this next episode, we can post that. I found the link to the original. I think what is the original post when I did a little Googling. So that PDF wasn't coming up so well on Facebook when I tried to open it up.
Really?
Yeah. So maybe before we record the next episode this week, we can throw that link up in one of our groups or both of our groups. Let people kind of browse it, and then we can actually revisit this in the depth that it would probably require. Right. Yeah, we really have to. And we'll talk about this next podcast because it's such a fascinating story on how we got here. Yeah. Exactly. All right. Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast, Blake. Hey, this was actually kind of productive. We actually talked to someone on topic today. Wow, that's amazing. So, yeah. All right. Talk to you next time. See ya. And thanks so much for listening to the Chasing Tone podcast. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, you can always email me at podcast@wamplerpedals.com. If you have a question for Blake, you can always email him at info@tonemob.com. And by the way, he does have his own podcast as well. So if you like guitar gear podcasts and more interview type things, make sure you check out his podcast. It's the Tone Mob Podcast.
So thanks for listening. Really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next week.